The woman nobody noticed. She showed up every morning at 6:47, exactly 13 minutes before her shift. Not a minute early, not a second late. She wore plain scrubs, always navy blue, never the cheerful prints the other nurses preferred, and she kept her dark hair pulled back so tight it looked almost military. Her name badge said Maya Reyes, float nurse, and that was exactly how the staff of Mercy General treated her. A float. A temporary body. A warm hand to fill in wherever someone called sick or a unit went short. Nobody asked her where she came from. Nobody wondered why a woman with her quiet precision ended up drifting between departments like a ghost in hospital corridors. They just handed her the assignment board and pointed her toward whichever floor needed a pair of extra hands that day. And Maya Reyes would nod, pick up her supply kit, and disappear without a word. The ER nurses called her the robot, behind her back, not cruelly, but because she never flinched. She'd worked 3 codes in one afternoon without breaking a sweat, her hands steady over a crashing trauma patient while a first-year resident was visibly shaking beside her. She'd intubated a pediatric patient in under 40 seconds when the attending fumbled, then stepped back as if she hadn't just saved the child's life, and calmly asked if anyone needed anything else. The charge nurse that day, a 15-year veteran named Sandra Torres, had watched the whole thing with narrowed eyes and later told a colleague, "That woman moves like she's done this in the dark. In the rain. With people shooting at her." Nobody laughed because nobody could argue. There was something in the economy of Maya's movements. No wasted motion, no hesitation, no panic. That didn't belong in a fluorescent-lit hospital in a quiet Midwestern city. It belonged somewhere else entirely. Somewhere most people were afraid to imagine. She ate lunch alone. She never checked her personal phone during breaks. She had no Instagram, no hospital gossip loop, no birthday card in the staff room. When the holiday party invite went around in December, her name wasn't even on the list, not out of malice, just because nobody thought to add someone who seemed to exist only in professional transit. The floor manager, Dr. Ellison, once asked her offhandedly where she had trained. "Various places," she said, and smiled in a way that closed the door on the conversation so politely he didn't even realize it had been shut until he was already walking away. That was Maya's particular gift. She could vanish in plain sight, standing right in front of you. ID badge clipped to her chest, stethoscope around her neck, and still be absolutely invisible. It was a Tuesday in February when everything changed. The trauma bay got the call at 11:22 a.m. Multiple casualties inbound from a classified training exercise gone wrong at a federal facility 30 miles east of the city. The hospital had been given minimal information. 4 wounded, 1 critical, military personnel, non-disclosure protocols in effect. Nobody on the floor knew what that meant exactly, except that 2 men in civilian clothes had arrived 20 minutes before the ambulances, and were standing at the entrance with expressions that made even security step back. When the first ambulance door swung open, the lead medic, still in full tactical gear, blood on his sleeves, jumped out and looked directly past the assembled trauma team. His eyes swept the bay once, twice, and then stopped. He stopped on Maya. She was standing at the back of the crowd, holding a supply tray, a float nurse who'd been assigned to trauma overflow that morning purely because the third-shift cardiovascular unit had called in short-staffed. She wasn't supposed to be there. She wasn't on the primary trauma team. She was background, furniture, and yet the man in tactical gear looked at her with the specific recognition of someone who has spotted the only person in the room they trust with their life. He didn't say her name. He didn't say anything a civilian would understand. He said one word, a word that made the charge nurse's head whip around, that made Dr. Ellison freeze mid-sentence, that made the 2 men by the entrance straighten up and exchange a look. He said a call sign. 7 letters. And Maya Reyes set down her supply tray with the same quiet precision she did everything. And the whole room felt the air change, like a frequency had shifted. Like something that had been hidden for a very long time had just stepped into the light. Before we go to Chapter 2, if this story already has your heart pounding, you're exactly who this channel was made for. Hit that subscribe button and the bell icon right now, because The Last Nurse is built for people who want stories with real depth, real grit, and real human courage at the center. Every chapter, every script, every story we tell here is crafted to stay with you long after the video ends. Subscribe and join a community that doesn't settle for ordinary. Clapperboard Chapter 2 Ghost Protocol. Her real name wasn't classified. Her service record was. There's a difference, and it matters, because the hospital staff didn't need a redacted file to feel the weight of what walked back into that trauma bay when Maya set down her tray. She moved to the gurney without being asked, without waiting for the charge nurse to reassign her, and nobody stopped her. That was perhaps the most telling thing of all. Not what she did, but the fact that not a single person in that room thought to question it. Dr. Ellison, who ran his trauma bay with the iron precision of a man who had never once allowed a protocol deviation without a written incident report, stood completely still and watched her work. The medic who'd called her call sign fell into position at her left side automatically, muscle memory overriding every civilian instinct. And together they moved around the critical patient with the synchronized efficiency of two people who had rehearsed this exact choreography. Except their rehearsal room had been somewhere without electricity, without sterile floors, without the luxury of a crash cart and a full pharmacy 3 hallways away. The patient was a man in his 30s, no identification. Gunshot wound to the upper thoracic cavity with secondary blast fragmentation across his left side. His pressure was catastrophic and falling. The first-year resident who'd approached the gurney had already stepped back, not from cowardice but from the simple, honest recognition that he was outclassed by something he couldn't name. Maya had the wound packed and a chest decompression initiated before the attending had finished scrubbing in. She called for equipment by specific catalog numbers rather than common names. A habit that made the scrub tech blink once in confusion before realizing she was correct, that the precise instrument she wanted was exactly what the situation required. She spoke in a low, level voice that carried no drama, only information, pressures, intervals, sequence of actions. And the room organized itself around her the way rooms do when someone with real authority enters, not the authority of a title or a badge, but the authority of absolute competence in a moment of genuine crisis. Sandra Torres, the veteran charge nurse who'd made the comment about rain and darkness months ago, stood at the periphery and watched with her arms crossed and her jaw tight. She'd spent 15 years in that bay. She had seen extraordinary doctors and extraordinary nurses. But she had never seen anything like this. This specific quality of calm that wasn't detachment, wasn't coldness, but something almost meditative, as if Maya existed in a slightly different relationship with time than the rest of them. As if crisis, for her, was simply the condition of normal life. Sandra thought of something her father, a retired Marine, had told her once, that you can always spot the ones who've been downrange, not because they're harder or louder or more decorated, but because they've already made peace with the worst-case scenario. They don't fear it. They've already lived inside it. And they came back. The patient stabilized 41 minutes after arrival. When it was over, when the numbers on the monitors settled into a rhythm that allowed the room to breathe again, Maya stepped back, stripped her gloves, and reached for a fresh pair with the same automatic economy she'd used since the moment she walked in. One of the men in civilian clothes, the one who'd been standing by the entrance and hadn't said a single word the entire time, crossed the bay and stopped in front of her. He spoke quietly enough that only she and Sandra, standing 3 feet away, could hear him. He said there was a situation. He said they needed her back, temporarily, consultative, no pressure. He said the words "your country" with the specific gravity of someone who doesn't say them lightly. And Maya looked at him for a long moment. The first time anyone in that hospital had seen her expression shift into something unguarded, something almost tired, the way a person looks when a door they thought they'd closed forever turns out to be still unlocked. She said she'd need 20 minutes to finish her charting. He almost smiled. Almost. The float nurse finished her documentation with her customary precision, signed off the patient transfer to the ICU team, and clipped her badge to her locker inside the staff room. She left her stethoscope hanging on the hook with a small piece of tape that said, "Sandra, take good care of this floor." By the time the day shift supervisor thought to look for her, the bay doors had closed and Maya Reyes, call sign classified, service record sealed, extraordinary in the most invisible way possible, was already gone. And the staff of Mercy General stood in the corridor in the particular silence of people who have just realized that greatness had been walking among them for months, filing paperwork, eating alone, and never once asking to be seen. She never asked to be seen. That was the whole point. That's the end of chapter 2. And if Maya's story hit you somewhere deep, that's exactly what The Last Nurse is here to do. Every single week, we bring you stories like this, of hidden strength, quiet sacrifice, and the extraordinary lives behind ordinary faces. Subscribe right now if you haven't already, share this video with someone who needs to hear a story like this today, and drop a comment below telling us what hit you hardest. We read every single one. This channel exists because of you, and there are so many more stories waiting. We'll see you in the next one.